Give them the experience of what it's like to work with your team. Give them the experience of getting immersed in working with you for a small commitment.
I've learned early on that if you give a guarantee and it doesn't make you squirm in your seat a little bit, that you're not being aggressive enough.
I cannot say that enough. Take advantage of this super consumer offering for absolutely free right now.
All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Predictable Profits Podcast. So with me today is our head of coaching, co-founder of Predictable Profits, good friend of mine, all around, just amazing person inside and out, Stephanie Vaughan. Welcome to the show.
Hello. I'm excited to be back.
So
We always have a good time here.
You know, Stephanie, usually I stand up on these podcasts and we have these conversations. I know I like to take good care of myself and, I eat well and I think I'm in, decent physical shape. But you know what the hardest thing about getting old is?
Where do I start?
I hurt myself in my sleep. I never used to hurt myself in my sleep. Somehow I hurt my knee in my sleep. How does that happen?
I don't know. I don't know. I could count the ways of how often things happen where I'm like, did that just happen?
It's crazy. I am very active during the day. I'll do crazy things all day long and, very physical type of activities, and knock on wood, and never get hurt. I go to bed and I hurt myself
You get hurt.
all the time
You get hurt.
when I'm sleeping. It's crazy.
That's actually, it's impressive.
I guess if you want to call it that. I'm not putting that on my LinkedIn profile.
Well, and especially since you're like working to become superhuman too. I'm slowly getting to the point where I'm like, I just got to start working backwards in my age because I feel like I'm in my early 30s. I legitimately feel like I'm in my early 30s. I feel so strong and I have lots of energy and then, little things like that will come up and remind me that I'm not in my early 30s.
My biological age, actually, we had it tested, and I'm 10 years younger biologically. So I'm 38 years old biologically. And so it actually,
do that test.
I did manage to reverse my age biologically with all the different things that I'm doing. And I'm currently aging at 50% slower than my chronological age.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome.
I'm
not sure I'm going at 50% slow.
Nobody would guess you're 70 years old looking at you, though. This is why it's safe for me to be saying things like this in a virtual environment, right?
I know. You're in front of me, you might get poked.
Yeah, maybe. Coming on today, I was thinking so many of the companies that we work with, they come to us selling these high ticket type of offers. And, they try to just get somebody on the phone, and it doesn't matter if they're trying to sell somebody into something that's, 5,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000. I mean, it's easier to sell somebody into a 5,000 one, without some sort of gateway offer, but even still, it can be helpful. It's worth testing. But when we think about these high ticket sales, what comes up to you? Why is it so difficult to close some of these high ticket sales?
Well, I think there's multiple things. I think that one, we're expecting to be able to take, from a phone call and then we move into the proposal and we haven't built enough edification and we haven't built enough trust and we haven't built enough of a relationship for them to feel confident and stable to be able to move forward with that. So I think a lot of times one of our biggest mistakes is that we try to make the sale too fast.
Yeah.
And when it's a high ticket item, obviously the sales cycles are longer. The number of calls and the number of meetings are going to be more. Usually it takes a team of people in that type of environment where, in multiple conversations in order for somebody to feel confident and certain that they're making the right decision and they're working with the right company. And that's what I love about the gateway sales strategy is that it's set up to be able to get people to make a decision faster and be able to test the waters. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about the gateway sales strategy.
And
And so, yeah,
When people, if for some folks, this is the first time they've ever heard of the gateway and, gateway sales strategy. And so why don't we kind of explain that a little bit so we don't lose people too quick into this. So, what is this idea of a gateway?
the gateway is really it's meant to be a smaller paid low risk engagement that helps take a lead to get them to make a decision that will lead them into a larger offer.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what it's.
Yeah. I kind of look at it this way. One way, it's like when you go into the mall, right? And you walk in the mall and you walk by the food court, and then inevitably you walk by Panda Buffet and somebody's standing out there with a plate full of kung pao chicken, right?
And
Yeah.
I always take it, by the way.
Me too. Me too. And I'm always like, I'm not really hungry for it, but I'm like, whatever. I take a little taste and I'm like, oh, this is good. Next thing I know, I've got like a little plate full of kung pao chicken, right? But the thing is it's like you're giving people a taste, you're giving people that initial win. And when somebody is sitting there and they're looking at you, and a perfect example, we've got a client that he does these specialized custom coding type of scenarios. So he's in technology and he builds all these custom apps and yada, yada, yada. And so his projects can be anywhere from 50,000 to a couple $100,000. And so everybody, all his competitors are sitting there and they're trying to do the same thing. They're trying to sell these $100,000 projects. And so one of the conversations that he had with us is, so how can I increase my close rate? And this is where we helped him craft this gateway offer. And that gateway offer is like, okay, let's take a look at things real quick. If you look at the different wins that you're able to provide your clients, what's the first tangible win on the grand scheme of things? The first tangible win that you have? And he's like, well, I mean, we sort of draw this out and we create this, this little bit of a roadmap, if you want to call it that. So they get a sense of what it looks like, how it feels. And so we ultimately framed this gateway for that first little micro win. And somebody turned around, they say, I want to work with you. He says, well, we can turn around and I can give you a quote on this bigger project. But at the end of the day, here's what we all have to do. Everybody in this industry, we have to give you a quote based on what we think is going to happen. And we're going to have to create some sort of buffer and so forth. And at this point, you're almost coming to us on a hope and a prayer that we're going to be able to deliver what it is that you envision in your head. We like to do things a little bit differently. We like to get things started with this roadmap process. And this roadmap is only going to cost you $2,500. At this point, we're going to be able to really sharpen the pencil. We're going to be able to design and give you a full look and feel of everything that's going to happen, the functionality and so forth. So in this way, you know exactly what you're getting before we start to build it all out. And it also allows us to quote it very precisely. And then it's $2,500 and you'll guarantee, you'll look back and say, this is the best investment of time, money that we could have made, or you'll just get all your money back. Now, of course, the sales pitch is a little bit more refined. I'm just kind of going off the cuff with what we're talking about here on the podcast, but you guys get the overall picture. And his close rate, it was like, it went up like better than doubled. It was like way better than doubled.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Well, and don't you think that when it comes down to it, there's really two common like core objections that typically people get. And obviously it's price, right? With the higher ticket items.
Yeah.
So it's, and especially like I said earlier, is if you haven't built the relationship and you haven't built the trust, then you're asking for a lot of money from someone who barely knows you
Yep.
and really doesn't know a lot about your company. So I think price is one of them. And then the other one is commitment. So, typically in those larger items, it's not just a one and done. And they need to know, are they ready to actually take that step forward?
Yeah.
And so what I love about the gateway is it removes or at least dramatically reduces both of those objections.
Yeah. Well, risk is really when you pull down all the layers and go, what is it really that's preventing them from moving forward?
Minimize risk.
It's the risk, especially if you're dealing with enterprise, because with enterprise at this point, you're not really working with a decision maker. You're working with somebody who then has to answer to a boss, whomever that might be.
Yeah.
And so the consequences of making a poor decision is more than the investment in just the service itself. the consequence is that they could lose a job.
Mhm.
And that's a really, really big deal.
That's a big deal.
That's a very, very
Yeah.
big deal. So, and even, I mean, a lot of the companies that we work with, they will sell to small business and they will deal with the decision maker, but it a lot is overwhelming. They might be looking at
Yeah.
you and two or three other different vendors. And many times it's so tough because, everybody's proposal that they've gathered, they're coming in pretty strong and they're pretty good. But then you
Mhm.
offer that gateway and it's like, look, here's the deal. This will be guaranteed best investment in time and money. You get your money back. It is going to cost you a fraction. And even if you decide on not working with us for whatever reason, that win that you're going to get will be valuable enough that you can still go back and have it requoted and everything else, by everybody else. Like this is ultimately, what's going through their mind.
Mm.
But the thing is if you do your job right and you deliver a great experience in the beginning, right? On average, we're seeing anywhere from, I think it's, they keep me honest here. I think it's anywhere from 60 to 86% of our clients that's their success rate of their upsell from
Mhm. Yeah.
the going from the gateway into an ongoing project. That's right. Right. I got those numbers right.
I think those numbers are very close, and I think most importantly, what I want people who are listening to understand is that you think of the old model, right? You think of the model of selling, right? You get a lead, you have a qualifying call, you probably have a couple of sales calls, and then you present the high ticket offer or you send a proposal. And with the gateway, it's not that much different. You're just putting the gateway in
Yeah.
between the sales calls and the high ticket offer.
Mhm.
That's all you're doing. And so I want to make that really clear. And it's not, it's also about leading somebody where they're making a smaller investment that leads into the bigger investment. So it is a part of the overall offer or the solution that they're investing in. It's just a small decision that they have to make that leads to the bigger decision.
Yeah.
I'd love for you, Charlie, to talk a little bit about that and how to structure, like how people structure that. Cause I bet there's a lot of people kind of their heads are swimming right now. Well, what does that look like? How would I do that? And so just if you could kind of explain how the gateway, like it's not just an assessment, right? It's not just a paid assessment, or it's not just, but sometimes we come up with these next steps and I don't want people to walk away going, oh, I just, I need to get somebody on a call and maybe pay to have an assessment or an audit done. So could you explain a little bit about how that's different?
Yeah. Well, if you think about your typical client engagement, and it's like, this is what needs to happen in order for us to take them from the current reality to then whatever that future outcome is. You look at that existing engagement that you have, and then it's like, what is the first win, that first deliverable that I can give somebody that gives them a win, a taste of the impact that we can deliver. But I think the most important part is not just selling them on that first part, whatever that might be. And in some cases, like if you're a digital media agency and you sell pay-per-click advertising as an example, it may just be like we have another client that, they do more of a deep dive audit, so to speak, right? But it's much deeper than all the other agencies are going to give this stuff for free, right?
Right.
This is like a very, very deep, comprehensive one. Are the pixels installed correctly and the tracking reporting in the right way? And it goes much deeper so they can accurately say, this is the impact we believe that we can have, and here's why. So the real win is, you know, not only is it important to understand what is it that you're selling, it's on the back end and the delivery. Remember you and I, Stephanie, we've been working together for a long damn time.
We have. You
And
haven't
one
got
of
rid of me yet.
one of our gateway offers way back was they say the first four initial calls, right? The first four
Mhm.
initial calls, and we would just sell. This is back when we were doing more in that one-on-one type stuff.
Yeah.
And that worked out really, really well. But in the beginning, we were like, where's that sweet spot? So we tested one call and that didn't convert as much as we wanted. We tested two calls and that didn't work. Three calls that worked better. Four calls worked out great. Five calls didn't work out as well. Six calls worked out even worse. So we're like, wait a minute, four calls is actually that sweet spot.
That sweet spot. Yep.
Why? I mean, I know why, but tell our audience why, so that they, as they build that fulfillment, what
Mhm.
is important about that?
So if you have too little, you haven't built enough of a relationship. If you do too much, you've given them too much and they think they have enough.
Yeah.
And so in a nutshell. And so I think that the most important thing is as you're thinking about your own gateway sales strategy is what is it that you can offer that gives them enough of the sizzle but not all the steak? And so when, with the 4 call, 2 calls, which just wasn't enough to build the rapport and the connection that we needed, and also to really understand our client's business to then, sell them into ongoing coaching.
Hmm.
And then when we got to too many, we were way over delivering too much to get somebody to actually make a decision to a yes.
Hmm.
And so that's where the 4 calls really were the sweet spot. And I think for anybody listening here who's thinking about, could I do a gateway sales? Yes, yes. The answer is yes, you can. The question is, where is your sweet spot as it relates to what you offer, where you're
Hmm.
not giving too much that they think they've been satiated and they have enough, and it gives them enough value that they go, oh my gosh, these guys are great. I can't imagine not working with them.
Hmm. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. The formula that you can look at is, when you think about retention, it's, relationships plus results equals retention. And so as you break down that formula, a lot of times people are going to focus in on the results part. And so they're like, all right, let's meet. They have a phone call, and then they get back to work, and then they show the deliverable. And
Mhm.
so, and that phone call is not built on building a relationship. It's usually some type of project manager or whatnot that's like, all right, just dump everything on me. What do you want? And all this other stuff. Dump it on me. Give me all this stuff. And then they meet, a week or so later, and they're like, here's the outcome. And they present the outcome. You didn't give them enough
Mhm.
time to build a relationship.
That's right.
And that you'll have much less of a successful upsell doing that is if you took the time to really build that relationship. And that part, how you start the relationship is very indicative of how you end the relationship. When I say end the relationship, and this is for another podcast down the road, but ultimately you want to take this client, keep them for life for additional recurring revenue. And even if it's project based, at some point you got to start thinking, at what point during the project am I going to then upsell them one more time to recurring revenue, whether that's
Yeah,
annual or monthly recurring revenue? Because regardless of your industry, the business that you're in, 50% of all your revenue should be recurring revenue. We're not
that's
saying
right.
reoccurring, we're saying recurring. Big difference between reoccurring and recurring. Right? Reoccurring, people buy here and there. Recurring is it's the same time every month.
Yep. And you talked about, just kind of to add on to the whole relationship thing, one of the things that you talk a lot about is, relationships plus results equal retention. And so I'm just curious if you have anything that you could share with the audience, like what specific, relationship type building touch points would you suggest that they bake into their gateway?
It's funny. When I was in school, they would always say, business is business and personal is personal. And right, you
Mm,
never want to make
I
business
heard that too.
personal.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that I learned in school that later in life I realized that in practical application, that doing the opposite actually makes more sense. And when you can make business personal, now that actually is a big win. And by making that personal, it's an understanding of, what's important to you and getting to know you on a very personal level. And it could be even something as simple in listening, right? Being something as simple as, you've just shared with me earlier today that your daughter's coming home, right?
Mhm.
So it's a simple little touches like it could be, if you really want to do something special, it could be like send a quick $25 gift card and it's like, hey, lunch is on me between you and your daughter. Again, little something, special. It could be even just a recognition of a quick message or a quick next time you talk to them on the next call, just being like, hey, did you enjoy the visit with your daughter? Anytime you can listen to somebody to hear what is important to them on a personal level prior to, you're going to have much more of that rapport. Relationships and rapport are very much aligned. When we
Yeah.
start an engagement with somebody, we'll go to the LinkedIn profile and we'll look at what's something interesting and unique in their LinkedIn profile. We'll go to their bio and their website. What is something interesting and unique about their bio? If you just look at the clients that we have right now, every single one of our clients, we know something personal about them. We know
Mhm.
either their goals,
Yeah.
we know about their kids and what their kids are up to. We know about some of the trips that they've made or some of the struggles that they're faced with or whatever that might be. Because when you start to bridge that gap between personal and business, that's when you create a friendship. When
Mm.
it's strictly business, there's no emotional connection to that person. And whether or not I choose to work with you or I choose to work with somebody else, it doesn't matter because our relationship is very transactional. It
Yeah.
means,
Yes.
you don't care about me and I don't care about you. It's very transactional. We're just here to do business and then I pay you and then, move on. I'm going to get some hate mail for this. So, it is what it is. One of my earlier mentors, the way that he described this is prostitution. He said it's very much like prostitution.
Mhm.
You turn around, you pay the prostitute for what you want, you get it delivered. She goes her way, you go your way, and there's no love lost. But then that's the way that so many business transactions are happened. It's like you give me money, I give you what you want, and then at the end of the day, we part ways and there's no love lost. The difference, on the other hand, is we're saying, no, like form that connection, get to
Mhm.
know them on a personal level, know what's really important to them, know what stresses them out at night, know what the ultimate what they want, a big win for them. Like take the time and get to know them.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I think that we live in this world of AI, and I'm a big fan of AI. I use it every day. It's something that we're embracing significantly in at predictable profits. And there's the slop that comes out of AI. There's the vanillas, the vanilla content. And so I, I think more and more we're in an environment now where people want something authentic
Yeah.
and they want something real.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that you can offer is that is the realness and the transparency and the authenticity and what you bring. And I think that's something that you can bring into as we kind of tie this back to the gateway. The gateway strategy is you can tie that into that. Give them the experience of what it's like to work with your team. Give them the experience of getting immersed in working with you for a small commitment. And that kind of reminds me a little bit about the guarantee, right? One of the things that we talk about with the gateway is we talk about having a really big guarantee, one that's almost kind of makes you have to swallow hard
Yeah.
on your guarantee. I'd love for you to share a little bit about, maybe people who are out there, maybe a little bit nervous about offering a big guarantee. What would you suggest, or maybe some safeguards or standards that, maybe they should have in place and what they should consider in their guarantee as part of the gateway?
So I've learned early on that if you give a guarantee and it doesn't make you squirm in your seat a little bit, that you're not being aggressive enough. You want a guarantee so bold that your competitors look at you and they're like, I don't understand how they do this. They're nuts.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And if you do a good job qualifying the person in the beginning of the sales conversation, then your chances of somebody taking advantage of the guarantee are going to be significantly lower because you're going to pre-qualify them to make sure that they're going to be for real. And you're going to be listening for signs if they continue to obsess over that guarantee. And it's like, so wait, tell me again about the guarantee and tell me about and what needs to happen and this, and that. Then they're planning their exit before they even start. And you pretty
Mhm.
quickly after having enough conversations, you know who those people are. And so when it comes to that guarantee, the very first time that I actually created this idea of this big, bold, hairy, squirmy type of guarantee was many, many years ago. I swear the Zappos person was coming to our house like, every week, or the delivery, right? We get Zappos shoes like all the time, especially with three
Mhm,
kids and, my wife, like we'd get shoe delivery. And this is, back when Zappos was really up and coming. And I'm
mhm.
going, how is this even possible? It's free delivery, rush delivery, like next day or 2-day worse. You got 1 year to try the shoes, and if
Mhm.
you aren't happy for any reason, then they'll pay for shipping back, and then they'll refund you, and I'm like, "Wait a minute here." They have a
Mhm.
real hard cost of shipping, a
Yeah.
hard cost with the shoes, a hard cost of shipping it back, let alone the hard cost of then restocking or even throwing them away if they have to throw them away.
Yeah.
And so this is when I wrote the first version of the Predictable Profits Playbook that I'm wanted to introduce some notion of this into the book. And I'm like, the math doesn't add up to me. This just seems crazy. So
Mhm.
I call one of the senior leaders over at Zappos. It might have been the CMO at the time. I can't remember offhand. But I called and I said, "Hey, mind if I just ask a question? I'm writing a book and this is kind of what's going on. And I'm trying to wrap my hands around this." And she says to me, "First of all, we believe in just people are inherently good. And that's just a core philosophy over here. But Zappos said people are inherently good." And I go, "Okay." And she said, "Initially we're going to get refunds because people would say, I don't know if I'm a 9.5 or a 10. So I'm going to buy the 9.5 and a 10. Then
Mhm.
they'll send one back." But she said, "Because we make the guarantee so liberal, we get far more sales as a result of it than if we were if we made them pay to return the shipping and like would lower our sales. So we get more sales, which offset any initial loss of people saying, I got to return my other shoe because I ordered 9.5 and a 10." But she said the the part of like the evil person who takes advantage of the guarantee just to kind of like pork you, right?
Yeah.
The person
Yeah.
who wears the shoes and then just sends it back and now you have to discard it, or they just kind of like they're constantly abusing it. She said that number is so small, it barely even makes it as a line item on our financial statements. And I'm like, really? So then I'm like, well, I mean, we do have hard costs, but proportionately nothing like Zappos
Yeah.
does.
Right.
And so then, we started testing it and we realized like Zappos, like, wait a minute, you get more sales, the conversion rate goes up with the guarantee, and the percentage of people that actually take advantage of it are so far and few between, especially
It's
if you spend that time building that relationship. Because let's face it, if I build a relationship with you, Stephanie, and now we've crossed that bridge, it's personal, and we have 4 calls together, and at the end, if I'm not happy to tell my friends, I want to I'm gonna send this back, and I want you to give me my money back, like, that's actually kinda hard. Like, that's
Mhm.
hard. The only times we've ever really had to refund somebody is when they don't show up, they don't take advantage of it, because we don't have the opportunity to build a relationship because they don't show up or take advantage of it, right? And so we don't have the opportunity to build a relationship, and then those are the ones that will ask for the refund. But I mean, we can pretty much count on like one hand in all the years we've been doing it, the number of times we had to refund somebody because they don't if you do
Yeah.
a good job with building that relationship and then of course delivering on that result.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what's what's one of the biggest mistakes that you find companies make early on when they try to institute a gateway sales strategy that you could share with the audience?
Beyond what we talked about, I mean, transaction is a big one, right? They just transaction, they just don't
Always.
decide to build a relationship. I mean, that I think is probably the biggest one right there.
Yeah.
Another one is their gateway offer, they treat it as a separate product as opposed to like a continuation of their deliverable.
Yes. Yep.
Y-
Spot on.
Yeah. So, they try to create something new instead of like, no, it's like, it should be like a continuation because that's going to help with the upsell.
Mm.
People who are just don't give a guarantee because it makes them nervous or squirm. That's one. Pricing is another
Yeah.
issue. They just don't know how to price it right. Right. So
Yeah.
it, a gateway, depending on the main price, it could be, usually we find like 10% of whatever the bigger picture, the bigger project is. It's, it could be a good rule of thumb. See, I'm trying to think, what else do you see, Stephanie?
Well, actually, I want to go back to the price point thing because I think you touched on something which, and I think it's important as we're kind of sharing some of these ideas around gateway is what would you say for those listening? They were like, maybe I should do something like that. Where that price point should be. Like what kind of product or what kind of price point should they be selling at for them to even consider doing a gateway that you have found that's worked most effectively?
So when you understand you're a super consumer, it, it will give you a better understanding because it's like if you're going to sell a product to a B2C market and it's $5,000, then that's very expensive for the B2C world, right? 5,000. So having a gateway for a $5,000 service is going to be important so that somebody has a taste of what that's going to look like. But if you're going to a company like IBM and it's $5,000, there's no need for a gateway. They'll spend more money on toilet paper in an hour than they're going to spend, $5,000. They just don't even think about it, right?
Well,
So it's
yeah,
like, so at that point, it doesn't even make sense. But if you're going to sell something that might be 20, 25, $50,000, something that has to fit into a budget a little more neatly,
yeah,
at that point, a gateway makes a lot more sense. And so, if let's say the project is $25,000, and a lot of small businesses too will have gateways, you could be working with a $3 million company and you want to do a website, then you're trying to pitch them $2,500 or $25,000 for a website. You could turn and be like, well, $2,500, we're going to turn around, we'll build the Figma files for you and make sure the functionality is all set. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, blah, blah, blah.
mhm,
And, one of the things that's also important, speaking of the price point, is you want to disqualify early. And so when you're having these conversations with people, you do want to let them know, okay, so I understand what you're trying to say, Stephanie. Typically, projects like this, they may range anywhere from say 20 to $40,000, depending on the bells and whistles that we put on there. I don't know, Stephanie. Are those numbers that scare you? And chances are you'll be like, no, 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 I think that's right. Be like, okay. So that's where you let them know at least the range, because if they come back and they're like, if you go, yeah, that really scares me. It's like,
right.
okay. So what number then did you actually have in mind? Oh, I thought this was going to be a $5,000 project. Then it's like, okay. So that's out of the realm of possibility for the work that we want to do. You might want to find somebody on Upwork, you know, but so it's good to disqualify them because again, that's part of like
Mhm.
selling the gateway. If you sell somebody a $2,500 project for something that they were hoping was going to come in at 5,000,
Yeah,
now
yeah,
they're going to look at the $2,500 gateway that you sold them in their minds. They're going to be like, well, I have no use for this because I can't even get the full investment.
right.
I just can't do it.
Yep, yep. No, I agree. I think that when anytime that we're selling, doing the qualification up front, making sure that they understand what the entire investment is, and the gateway is not a reason to get somebody to make a commitment on something they can't make a bigger commitment on.
Yeah.
It's meant to reduce that perceived risk
Yeah.
and commitment. It's meant to build that trust. It's
Yeah.
meant to give them a chance just to test drive your value.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you have something that's really worth doing and it's really worth what they need, they're going to get a taste of that.
Yes.
And so it helps to get them to say yes. And you have a good solid plan and project that, they're going to love it, and then they're going to want to continue. So now they've test drove it,
Yeah.
and now they're ready to make a bigger commitment. That's really to me, that's the crux of the gateway,
Yeah. Agree.
is to getting people to test drive and make a decision sooner.
Now, Stephanie, I know we're pushing up against the clock here. So where this is a Beyond Seven Figures podcast, if there was like one big tip that you could give somebody who wants to take their business beyond seven figures as it relates to the gateway, what is that one big tip?
Mine's really simple. Just do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do a gateway. If you haven't done something like this before, go back, listen to some of the strategies and what we've talked about, implement a gateway, give it a try, test it. Every single member that we have that we work with, every client that we work with, I don't know one that didn't do a gateway that didn't have a great experience.
Yeah.
And most of the time, the biggest answer I normally get is, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner.
Right? Yeah, that's so true.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I say, do it. Implement it, test it.
If I was to add one on top of that, know your super consumer. Right? Because once you understand that super consumer, even then it brings context into the gateway and can really help make refine the offer so that it becomes irresistible to that super consumer.
Before we close out, Charlie, because you've mentioned super consumer a few times, and I know that we've talked about super consumers on this, but I think super consumer is a term that some people don't know the difference between a super consumer and an ideal client profile.
Yeah.
And, everybody knows the term ideal client profile. Just real quick before we close out, could you just clarify for people, what is the difference between a super consumer and an ideal client profile?
So when you start a business, if you go to business school or whatever that might be, or read a book, they're going to tell you, know who your target market is, create this ideal client profile, and it's going to be theoretical. So this is based on everything that I believe to be true. This is who my ideal client is going to look like. And you create it, and then you build your marketing message around it and the whole deal. Then what happens is over time, you start to become more successful, and you start bringing in clients and deals. And now you have data. And for some companies, they might have enough data around that $500,000 mark. Other times it might be $1 million, $1.5 million, where you have enough data to know, okay, these are the clients that pay me the most amount of money, that we deliver the best results on, that send us the most amount of referrals, that are the easiest to work with, and so forth. And then that particular client actually is your super consumer. This is the best client that we have, our most profitable one that stays with us forever. And when you look at your business, if you look at it and go, what would your business look like if you just brought in one more of your best clients? What would happen? What would happen to your business if you brought in 5 more of your best clients? And that becomes measurable impact in both revenue and profits. And so that's all the super consumer is. It's just, who is that super consumer? And then you go back and you revisit your messaging and your offers and everything to specifically appeal to those people. Because what will happen is you'll still get people that are outside of the super consumer, but you're going to attract a heck of a lot more of those super consumers. And then their revenue and profits will benefit as a result.
Yep.
And actually, speaking of super consumer, we actually did something really cool where on our website, if you go to predictableprofits.com, and there's a button on the website, I think it says take your first step or something like that. We just added it, right? It's like take your first step or something like that on the website, on the homepage at predictableprofits.com. You click on that and you're going to get to this page where you can actually fill out just like 4 or 5 questions about your super consumer. And what this does is it actually it's connected to an API to our own proprietary Predictable Profits AI, our engine, with over 11 million characters of trained information in the database. But what it'll do is it'll take that information, go into our database, then it will go to your website, familiarize itself with the website, the different pages, the competitors, the industry, do deep research, go look at your ideal buyer, go back and research the buyer's journey, understand their pains, their core objectives, like everything. It doesn't use one AI tool, doesn't use just like one LLM. There's actually two different LLMs that it uses to gather this information. And then it brings it all back and synthesizes that information and then gives you this super detailed report. And, if you were to hire a market research company, we've had some of our board of directors members say, I would pay $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 for research like this. And this is part of giving our listeners an understanding of what could it be like to work with us? What are some of the insights and the aha moments that you can get? So it's just a free tool that we go ahead and we created.
Super powerful, by the
Oh,
way. I
crazy.
cannot say that enough. Take advantage of this super consumer offering for absolutely free right now, which I even talk about offering things that that make me cringe. It's like, Charlie, really? You would offer this?
Yeah. Well, it costs us every
So
time somebody runs it because of how
yeah,
much
it
data
does. I
it
mean,
uses
there
in the
are some,
background.
yeah, there are some hard costs. And what I love about the AI agent, which you touched on, it is proprietary in the sense that it's completely trained on our IP
Yeah.
and everything that we teach and everything that we've learned and all of our expertise. So you tap into that brain trust,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic. So I would absolutely take advantage of that.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, hey, go to predictableprofits.com. Go check out that super consumer. You can download it right now. You can get it all for free. So go to, I think it's take your first step again on predictableprofits.com. We're going to be doing a workshop soon, depending on when this podcast actually drops. We're running this workshop. And so get on our list. You'll get so much more information. We're actually going to really break this down. We're going to be talking about the super consumer. So you'll get detailed breakdown of your super consumer. We're going to go into your gateway offer. You'll walk away with your gateway before you leave that workshop. It's a 90-minute workshop. And then we're going to do another session as well within that workshop. We're going to show you how to revive all your dead leads and re-engage those dead leads. If you just take one of those strategies in and of itself, that will move the needle in your business. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to give you all three of those strategies. And we're doing that because we want to give you a running head start into 2026. And this is part of our, I guess, our gateway, if you want to call it that, because when people begin to experience the impact of the work we do together, it's going to start to connect like, oh, wow, this is why the results that Predictable Profits generates for their clients are so much different than everybody else in the coaching industry. Now I'm starting to get why they're in the press all the time and why, people are citing them for their big moments. It's because of things like this. And it can be really hard to explain until people actually see it for themselves. And then they're
Yep.
like, oh my God, where you been all my life?
Yep.
And so if you get on our list, you'll get an indication, you get a sense for when the details on that workshop and whatnot. And you can do that by jumping in on predictableprofits.com. I think you can also go to start.predictableprofits.com/strategy workshop, if I remember that right. Start.predictableprofits.com/strategy workshop. But get on the list, fill out the super consumer profile, start there, and let's rock and roll. Stephanie, this has been great. Always love talking to you.
Always have fun on these.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
That wraps up today's episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast, and I will see you in another show.